it's interesting how as realization deepens and we start to sort of confront the dualistic construct or the dualistic experience, a lot of what comes into play is actually emotion. So they seem very unrelated in a way, like deep shadow, intense emotion, shame, anger, fear, all those very intense, direct experience of emotion, that space that comes into play there seems unrelated in a way to like the dualistic experience in the senses, but it is related for sure. It's related to the obscuration of it, and the obscuration of it is exactly that. It's an avoidance of certain feelings. It's an avoidance of certain patterns of sensation in the body that it's like a habituated avoidance. It's not like we chose to do it necessarily either, maybe to some degree, but for the most part, it's just habit. And the avoidance is a mechanism of turning attention inward into the mind. And the result of that, I don't know where the cause and effect is, and it doesn't matter, but the result of that is a sort of abandonment of the physical sensations. Anyone can like touch into physical sensations for a short time, but to actually abide there, to abide in the sensations that we call it associated with the body ongoing, requires realization, because very quickly that turns into a mental snapshot, a mental pattern, and then a bunch of thought and a bunch of narrative about your challenges and your problems and your story and your pain and your everything, on and on. That's why emotion really is where the rubber meets the road with deeper realization, because the emotion is just what we label the interface between body and mind. That's what we label the interface between sensation and story and narrative and challenge and all of it. But it's Adi Shanti kind of makes the distinction between awakening at the level of mind, which might be what I would call an initial awakening, and awakening at the level of heart, which I might call non-dual, more like non-dual realization, or realization of the primacy of the senses rather than the mental version of reality, which are very different experiences. The very bottom of all of it, when you're really looking directly at the mechanism of self, it's pretty much that mechanistically, it's actually impossible for the self structure to remain intact if the seeing is clear enough. But for the seeing to be clear enough, attention has to remain in the sense field long enough. And it doesn't, for quite some time, it doesn't have the ability to do that. We'll just end up in our head again, which can take a snapshot of anything, including your own insights or your memory of your own insights. And it turns that snapshot into more of that inner world. So we really have to differentiate between the inner world, or the reflective picture of reality of what's happening, and the direct sensory experience at some point. Earlier in the process, it can be skillful for initial awakening, like Kensho. It can actually be skillful to like turn attention inward to consciousness, which is the first big step, and even kind of close the sense gates, so to speak. But I don't think as much it's required to close the sense gates as it's just a result of concentrating consciousness, concentrating attention within consciousness, because that's a big revelation to realize that all of the dualistic experiences within consciousness were all a sort of unified experience, just being divided up rather haphazardly by a mental process. And it's like, whoa, it's a rather unified experience to even realize that. Then later on, then we start to actually sort of retrain. I suppose one way of saying it is retrain the nervous system to allow attention to come back into the body. So that's kind of the second step. Interestingly, it's a little different for everyone. The sensations, the sounds and sensations may kind of flow in and out, but if you use that as your sort of tuning fork initially, that just abiding in the knowing of abiding, you can sort of just remain there and become very vigilant to any thought appearing at all. That's kind of your tuning fork in a way, and that can concentrate attention rather powerfully. But I never want to tell anyone like it has to go this way or that way. If you feel inclined to orient to the sense fields as well, go for it.